Hey guys, and welcome back. And I'm back in PaintTool Sai, having a go at painting another portrait. This time I am working on a portrait of a character named Talon. Talon is one of my ground unit captains. His team specializes in the testing and reviewing, I guess, of new technologies. In particular, they focus on finding out what works and what doesn't work within the toxic zone, because while they have a few things that still work, most technologies, whether it's communication or weapon advancements, seem to shut down once you cross or get in relatively close to the toxic material. However, that's really not helpful when you're trying to explore that area. So while some of the other units focus on kind of combat that involves swords, staffs, anything that doesn't have mechanical ongoings, I guess, like even some plasma rifles, electrical based weaponry just will not work. And part of Talon's team is to take new approaches to these weapons and take them into the toxic zone to work. It had become apparent after their first few tries to explore this toxic zone that their weapons were failing them. Their communications, any devices, they just seemed to shut down. Once they left the zone, they were fine, but within this toxic zone, they're just useless, fancy paperweights. And what else they noticed is that the creatures that were forming within this toxic zone were hostile. Not all, but the deeper they managed to get in, the more hostile these creatures became. And so that was a real problem when they had no technology to rely on to even call for backup or whatnot. So Talon's unit was formed they work in tandem with a technology unit that actually stays based at the headquarters, bar one or two that do a bit of both. And between them, they come up with new technologies, new attempts at technologies to try and use to get deeper in and figure out what's happening within this toxic zone. And I guess for the most part, that is the premise for this whole storyline I'm working on. Talon himself he's a good dude. He is unnecessarily honest. So that is one thing that works in his favor for his job when it comes to relaying the information about the technology they've tried and everything. He's very honest about it. He gives them what worked, what didn't, what he thinks, whether they like it or not. And he also expects everyone to in turn be that honest with him. He will quite often just believe people for what they say to his face, and thankfully he just works in a small unit that cooperates with another small unit, so it doesn't affect anything too much. But yeah, he's got to learn to stop trusting people for their word just because that's how he operates. But thankfully most of his unit are pretty good, and that's all that really matters. The main person he interacts with from the technology side of things is actually the main character of this story, April. April is the head of her technology department, and they focus in communications. So a big part of her role is leading this team to develop further devices for, at this point in time, just Talon's team, so that they can relay messages not only to each other and from like short waves and long waves. So eventually once they can get the technology to work, within their unit in the toxic zone, they'll work on furthering that communication capabilities back to the HQ. Thankfully for Talon, April is also a very honest character, and she doesn't have like a hateful bone in her body really. She's more just constantly exhausted and more terrified of herself than anything in the world. But unfortunately for Talon and his honesty, April loves drones. And I have done small comics about this in my Instagram, but in her concepts of making them, Talon noticed one in particular looked kind of like an octopus, and you know, just let his honesty get the best of him and relied to her that he's terrified of sea creatures. And for April, that was just the best thing in the world, and now most of her drones are based off octopuses, octopi even, and so she gets a lot of fun out of torturing this poor soul, and he kind of has to just put up with it. But I don't know if there's like an actual word for that. Hold up a second. So I knew like thalassophobia was the fear of the ocean, but apparently it is also being afraid of encountering sea creatures rather than just the sea itself. That is most definitely what Mr. Talon has. And while it is his greatest fear, at this point it becomes April's greatest source of entertainment. It really is a good thing for Talon that April's, you know, it's not a life goal to torture him, so she kind of keeps this main drone that she calls Bolts, who's like this cute little octopus thing. She keeps him as her assistant, so then while the drones that she does send out to his units don't tend to look like any form of sea creature, she has this one wee drone, and so anytime Talon has to go to the technology department, he's already on edge. I'm pretty sure he's on edge every time they even get like new technology from them, because he's just waiting for that one creature-esque like drone or device that he's going to have to try and put up with. But at this point, April hasn't been mean enough to send anything out into the field to put him off, because she does realise there would be larger consequences for the captain of the ground unit to not be on his A game, especially when he is, you know, in charge of not only himself but a wider unit and all their movements. But looking at the drawing itself now, you'll be able to see I've been trying this new thing where I do my base shading and lighting, because I have this horrid habit of not using like dark colours, like dark colours, and then not using light colours. I kind of keep my tones very similar. So I painted this the way I normally would, and now I've put a layer on top where I'm brightening and darkening what I can, but I've put the layer even on top of the line art. So that way when I'm painting over it, I'm actually taking out some of the harsh lines. And I really like the effect of it, to the point that I started doing some more kind of over painting just for the purpose of taking out the dark lines. And like, you still see them amongst things and the black is still there, but it's not as prominent. And yeah, just having the line art peeking through in places looked a lot better to me than having it all there, because usually I'll make it like a orange or a red and then change it to a multiply layer so it, you know, everything shows through underneath it a wee bit and it just darkens it off. And while I really like that, I think I might keep it for like my chibi style, whereas for my painting portraits, I don't know, I just really like taking those harsh lines away. It was on this layer as well that I kind of touched up wee bits, especially at the lighting with the blur. because yeah, I like the darker sides to have the texture there, and I like the texture to be present throughout. But I just felt with some of the lighting to have smoother areas worked a lot nicer, and then it actually kind of made the gradient between the shadows and the light and the base color flow better. And I mean, to be fair, like, Talon can be a bit stone-faced at times, but I don't want his face to actually have the texture of a stone. I needed something to be smoothed out. And I just figured taking just that bit of lighting and smoothing that off created that effect that I needed. So my textures are still there, but I have my lighting. And I am so happy that I'd been playing with my brushes to even be able to get that brush to blend better than usual. And yeah, from there I kind of chucked a wee background on it and called it done. For anyone that kind of wanted to go, and I'm experimenting with this a wee bit, I will have a link in the description to the line art. And so if anyone else would like to try and paint Talon, whether you print it off and colour it in with a pencil, or download the digital file and have a go with whichever product you like to use, I would love to see it. You can tag me in it on Instagram, or you can email it to me, and then yeah, please like and subscribe and comment if there's anything else you'd like to see. Bye!